Welcome back to Awakening TV. I'm your host, Alicia Hartzell, the author of the book, Awakening to Your Story, and heart expert. Yes, I love all things related to your emotional heart, and I am going to answer a question today that I got about that very thing. The question that we're going to be looking at today echoes back to episode 8. In episode 8, you talked about building a happiness scale. I really enjoyed the story about your client, but as someone who fights depression, isn't it unreasonable to expect to be happy all of the time? I was wondering if you could talk about the reality of happiness and how the scale works. I would love to. Yes, the happiness scale is something that I ended up it came to life because a client needed a little bit of help. And I do that with my clients that I work one-on-one with. We come up with exercises and activities that are specifically designed for your story. And more often than not, those exercises are actually really helpful because we all have the same sort of problems as we sit at the table of humanity, right? Now, I do want to say that, yes, trying to be happy 100% of the time, well, that would just leave you being inauthentic. There's no real way to be happy all of the time. Happiness is a beautiful emotion, and, fear and sadness and being upset, all of those things in that family of emotion that we look at usually as a negative thing, those emotions are beautiful and they are extremely helpful indicators of what's going on in your life. Now, if you're in a place of unhappiness or a place of pain or a place of sadness or a place of fear more than it is necessary within your story, then you might not be utilizing that indicator completely, right? Now, if you are having an emotion like fear or pain or sadness, and it's in overdrive and you feel those things more than you feel other things, it's time to step in and start to utilize that emotion, because that indicator is raising its volume so that you can pay attention to what's going on in your system. Now, as a person who went through a period of depression and did not pay attention to the indicator, I didn't know how to pay attention to the indicator. I sat in it for a really long time, and it took me a long time to kind of pull myself out of it. And I created this happiness scale as a tool to kind of help my client move out and climb out of that place of unhappiness so that she can put equal attention on the happiness than the pain, right? So as we start to process and understand indicators in our life and information in our life, right? It's important for us to understand where our consciousness is. And so I always like to go back to the stream kayak principle. If you are in your boat, right? Your consciousness is your boat, and you have everything that you need in that boat. And the river that is underneath that boat is life. The optimal position is to be flowing in harmony with the water, right? Flowing downstream. And if there are rocky waters ahead, you can navigate your way through them. You have everything you need in your boat to kind of figure it out and manage it. It doesn't mean that you're not honest about what's going on, right? Just because you're in your boat and you're in sync with life, that doesn't mean that everything is going to be roses and sunshine all of the time. That's not the human experience. But if you're in your boat and you're conscious and you're stepping in, you can navigate your way through them. You may have your hands gripping that paddle so tight as you move through what's going on, but at least you're conscious and utilizing what's in front of you, right? If your boat is turned the other direction and you're paddling upstream and you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting, and that is where your unhappiness stems from, is the fight against what's going on in your life, then it's valuable to put the paddle back in the boat, let the boat turn itself back around, and start to pay attention to the information that led you into the fight in the first place, right? And then what about when you're not even in your boat and you're struggling and you're clamoring and you feel like you're drowning in your life, right? If we have not been there, which if we're honest, we probably have been, you know somebody who has been in this place where it feels like they are so needy because they're grabbing onto your boat and they can't seem to keep their head above water, right? Being in that kind of scenario is not sustainable, right? It's when all those kind of emotions that are survival based are in hyperdrive and they're working, trying to get you to figure out what the information is on the river of life, but you're not actually utilizing them. You can't get to a place where you can get back in your boat, right? And so that is part of where the happiness scale comes in. And it is a tool. It's a tool to get you back in your boat, to get you utilizing the positive things within your life as much as you're giving time to the negative things, right? Those painful spirals in your mind that you find yourself going down when you close your eyes at night, or when your mind drifts off into space. Now, I love to give heart actionables every week, and I try to keep it to 3. And the first heart actionable this week, as we talk about happiness and its authentic place in our life, is give yourself permission to be happy, right? So often we get caught up in the details of our everyday life and in the cycle of challenge and pain and frustration and fear, and we forget that we have permission to step outside of those things, right? The happiness and the joy and the love and the possibility, they're as much of us as the fear is, as the pain is, right? You've gone through a million different things in your life that have you believing in all of those thought processes that say that you're less than. Those adopted beliefs are holding as much space, and probably more space, than your essential truth. And what we need to do is give yourself permission to step back into the place of your essential truth, right? To kind of step outside of your circumstance, even if it's just for a moment, and give yourself permission to dig in and to find happiness. Because I promise you, no matter where you are, it's there as much as the other stuff is there. It's just where the attention is to it, right? Hard actionable number 2, be honest and authentic where you are. So if you're on the river of life and you're flowing and it's a shitstorm, be honest about it. You can't utilize it if you're trying to mask it and suppress it, right? Be honest about where you are and what's going on in your life. It's only then that you can actually use it to help you move forward, help you move beyond the place of where the limitation has you kind of tethered, right? And then the next one is give as much energy to your heart and the love and the possibility and the essential truth that is associated with joy and happiness as you give to those voices in your head that tell you otherwise, right? We have a contrast in us that is a constant battle for a lot of us, right? Our essential truth versus the adopted beliefs. And those are those shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and you're not enoughs that float in our head that tell us that we are not the possible light and love that is intrinsic within us, right? understand where you are, give yourself permission to be happy, be honest with where you are, and then give as much energy to the positive as you are to the negative. So if you find yourself struggling, paddling upstream or trying to get yourself back in your boat, give as much head time to the light as you do to the struggle, right? And as we step into understanding that, I want to go back to the story of the happiness scale, because it is a really miraculous one. And the client that I did it with, where it all kind of came about, was gracious enough to let me use her story and the examples that she gave to help other people start to step back into their place of happiness, right? So when you're creating your happiness scale, basically what I want you to do is just get out a piece of paper and get a pen and start creating cellular memories, right? That's the first thing you do. And what is a cellular memory? A cellular memory is a memory that when you recall it, it gives you goosebumps, right? It makes you feel that thing that you experienced, right? The memory, it makes you feel that again. Now, we can have positive cellular memories and we can have negative cellular memories. What I want you to do is focus on the positive, right? One of my very favorite cellular memories is after I released my book, my first book, I was hanging out with one of my best friends, and she was laughing, and she's like, we were being ridiculously silly, like pantyhose on the head, giggling, like just a full expression of life and love and joy. And she leaned over at me and she's like, well, you did it. You wrote a book, you launched it, and if you can do this, you can do anything. And I was sitting on the fireplace with her, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can do anything. And the minute I put myself back in that memory, I feel like all things are possible, right? We all have these cellular memories that if we give them the space that they deserve, right? They can have us right back in our boat no matter where we are, right? If I'm sitting in a place of fear or I don't know what to do next, whatever, all I have to do is pull out that cellular memory, hold it with appreciation, and I'm back in my boat and I'm ready to move forward, right? I can get still. So we start to write out those cellular memories, right? So that's what I want you to really step into as you are starting to build this happiness scale. Now, to the story of the happiness scale. I was working with a client who was having a hard time kind of trying to figure out if she wanted to keep moving forward. She's like, I'm doing all this work and I feel like I'm not getting as far as I want to get, and I'm still struggling, and I just need to know that I should keep moving forward with trying to find my happiness. And I was like, okay, well, ask, right? I'm a big proponent of asking. Ask for your miracles, and then they will show up. Ask the universe, ask the divine, whatever your belief system is. Ask God. Wherever your belief system lies, step in and ask. Ask for your miracle. And she's like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, listen, you can manifest, you can call in, you can use law of attraction more than you think that you can. And this is a client who has had huge success in doing that. And so she's like, okay. And so we were trying to kind of get her to a place of stepping outside of that spiral case, like the staircase down, right? Because she's like, I jump on that staircase and I spiral myself down and I can't get back up. I was like, all right. So let's think of where you are when you're kind of baseline, right? Like where are you when you're baseline? And she's like, okay, yeah. I'm like, I'm there. I feel like, okay, I'm even keeled, right? I'm kind of at a base point. I'm good. And I'm like, okay, great. Now, where is your cellular memory of you kind of just feeling even keeled and like everything's okay? And she's like, well, let me think about it. She's like, oh, maybe when I'm like hanging out, I'm trying to get this right. It's crazy. When I'm hanging out with my dogs in bed and I'm like, okay, I'm just like, I'm okay. Like, and she's like, okay, I'm hanging out with my dogs in bed and I feel completely content with where my life is. And I'm like, okay, great. You're curled up with your puppies and you're in your cozy bed and you're feeling content. And she started stepping into the cellular memory of on the weekends when she wakes up and she's got her puppies, like the loves of her life in bed, her cellular being starts to relax and she's content, right? She's there. I'm like, okay, so that's kind of your baseline. I was like, okay, what's next? And she's like, well, how about when I'm I have room, I have space to kind of think about it and I'm a little bit higher up. I'm like, okay, that's good. I was like, give me your cellular memory for that. And she's like, well, it's when I'm laying on the ground, in my clean house and the record player is playing a really good song and I kind of just have space to think about stuff. And I was like, awesome. There's your cellular memory. Find a word, put it in there, write out your cellular memory. You got it, right? So that's kind of higher up on the list. There's a little bit more space there. There's a little bit more, room for her to kind of be, right? Have a little bit more joy or appreciation, right? And as we kind of go up, I'm like, okay, so then what? And she's like, well, how about when I can be curious and I can be out there? And I'm like, okay, give me a cellular memory. Come on, bring it. And she's like, okay, like when I'm like out on the porch, drinking a beer, watching the fireflies, looking at my garden grow. I'm like, awesome. And as she starts to say it, she starts to have a smile on her face. You can kind of start to see that space within her heart where she's like, oh yeah, like I have more room. I have more room to be authentically who I am. And all of a sudden, as she's talking, fireflies start going off. We're on her back patio doing her session, and fireflies literally start to light up in the grass around us. And I'm like, okay, so do you see that? Do you see that you said your cellular memory was sitting with space to contemplate life and to enjoy what it is that you've created around you, and now you're here and the fireflies that you asked for in your cellular memory are here in front of you right now? And she kind of gets like a smile on one side of her face. She's like, yeah, I see it. I'm like, okay, and do you see the power in that? And she's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, so like, let's raise the bar even higher. Tell me where you feel like you are happy, right? Where you have joy and it's on fire in you. I want that cellular memory. And she had been working on trying to figure some of these things out before we got to the session. And she's like, my grandmother told me that I was one of her favorite memories. And I was like, that's amazing. Okay, tell me about it. She's like, she said to me, do you remember the time when we were sitting out on the patio at her house and we were watching the storm roll in? We could hear the thunder and we could see the lightning and it smelled like rain. And it was just her and her grandmother. And the grandmother was explaining this to her and she's like, yeah, I totally remember that. That's one of my favorite memories. And she's like, that is one of my all-time favorite memories. You are one of my all-time favorite memories. And for her, she had worked so hard, and she had been working so hard on this idea of her worthiness and her ability to create happiness and joy in her life, because she had it as part of her story as much as she had some of those other things that she had adopted along the way. And this cellular memory showed her her value, right? It was the mirror to all of the value that she had within her. And as she starts to say it, you can see the joy and the energy start running through her. And I kid you not, it's not seconds later that the sky around us starts to light up. And there's thunder and there's lightning. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? If these are not your miracles, I don't know what are. Like, I couldn't write this in a story better. Like, if I were to write a story, I couldn't write it this well. And she's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, so are you willing to step in and fill out this happiness scale and to keep doing the work moving forward? Because there is evolution in your life. And if you turn around and you look at how far you've come, there's a lot of movement forward there. And your miracles are saying, keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep returning back to that love and that joy within you. And she's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'll show up. I'll keep going, right? And there was so much power in that moment for her, because she recognized that while she carries all these cellular memories, and while they are as much a part of her as the limiting beliefs that she's been carrying and fighting against for so long, her job was to keep showing up, right? To show up for the miracles and to ask for the miracles and to dig in to her life and to keep fortifying that love within her story on that happiness scale. And in the weeks to come, what she ended up doing was filling in probably 20 different emotions that she had with cellular memories associated with them, right? So that she could, if she needed to, climb her way back up out of that spiral down. And what this does is, when you have it on paper and it's black and white, you actually have something tangible that you can pull at and go, okay, no, as much as I feel the pain, I can make a conscious choice to step in and utilize the good that's there too. And these cellular memories have to be strong enough for you to actually use them to pull you up, right? So as you start creating your happiness scale, start at the baseline, and as they flow in, just kind of move them up and down. Be as creative with this as you want to. Some people love getting creative and some people don't. But I will say, if you put them in a book and put photographs with them, right? Spend as much time as you can here in this place. Be authentic with where you are. I'm not asking you to be inauthentic, but just because you're in a place of suffering does not mean you can't consciously step out and take a break. Yes, there are crappy things going on in front of you, but wherever you plug your energy source into, that is where you will be able to create more of that energy. So if you're plugging it into the negativity, that suffering and that loop of sadness and pain and destruction, you're going to keep feeding that circle, right? If you plug your energy source in to your happiness scale and the cellular memories that are yours, that are intrinsically there as part of your story, then you're going to start feeding into the light and the love and the joy and the possibility. And from that space, you can actually step in and start to engage in the information that created that problem area too. You can start to interact with it with a little bit more neutrality so that you can step in and actually do the work, right? Give as much time to the positive things within your heart space, within your story, as you do to the voices that chatter up your head telling you that you can't, that you're not good enough, that you won't have. Whatever those voices are that are echoing the limiting belief, Give as much time and headspace to the positive. I am joyful. I am content. I am happy. I have miracle work in me, right? I have the ability to call in those miraculous moments. I myself am a miracle in motion. I am light. I am intrinsic love set into motion, right? I understand that sometimes when you're there, it feels like it's a lie. And I really do get that. And I want you to be authentic with where you are. But also acknowledge that if it's there within your space, if you've experienced it, it is also honest, right? So even though it may feel like a lie in the moment, you're recalling on it and you're also rehearsing for it. So be authentic, but also give as much space to the positive as you have to the negative. And if you're in a place where you're not in your boat and you are spiraling down, then your job is to get up and to get going and to get moving. Even if it's external, right? Watch a movie that makes you happy. Go to a place that makes you happy. Sit by the lake, sit under a tree, get your butt in the sand or your feet in the dirt, right? Sit in the sunshine. Take a 5-minute break and take a breath, right? Google babies laughing on YouTube. Sit in the laughter of a child for 3 minutes, right? For as much space as you have that negativity, that pain, that suffering, step into the place of light and love and possibility. Give it as much space as you can, right? So the 3 hard actionables: give yourself permission to be happy. Number 2, be honest and authentic with where you are. And number 3, give as much energy to the positive and the light as you are to the pain and the challenge, right? I hope this has helped kind of explain that happiness scale and explain that you do not have to be 100% happy all of the time. That is not, if that's your goal, it's a beautiful goal, but recognize that we are human beings and the human experience is a mix of emotion and a wonder of situations that fall at our feet, but you have the power to be conscious and to be settled in to light and love, no matter what it is you're navigating through. So until next week, until we meet again, know that I believe in your power of happiness. I believe that you have it in there, and that if you spend just a little bit more time on it, it will grow and multiply. And that essence of love and expression of truth and creation of life are so needed at the table of humanity. Move through the challenge, evolve through it, and then bring that truth to the table of humanity. Know that I appreciate you for all of it, for all that you're experiencing, for the ups and the downs and the goods and the bads. And I'm so grateful that you sit with me at the table. For more support, information, and inspiration, join me at awakeningtoyourstory.com.